I think we're live. I'm not sure. I have it up on the other screen to see when it actually triggers. But awesome, great. Uh, is it going? Okay, we're good.
Looks like
Just
we're
wanted to
live
make
about
sure.
13 seconds.
Perfect, great. Well, it was great. It's finally great to have you on here, Dustin. Really enjoyed getting to watch through some of your catalog of all the stuff that you've been going on, catch some of your lives when I can. You're doing awesome things. You're helping a lot of people, and you have a great story just on your own. So, can you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what KetoSimple is all about?
Yeah, man. My name's Dustin. I run channel Keto Simple. I have for a while. Started really in 2021 as far as the channel's concerned. But as far as me, started my low carb keto journey in 2016. Um, started, I was in the process of getting a hernia repair and getting a CPAP machine for my sleep apnea. And in the process of doing doctor visits for all of that, I had stepped on the scale and realized that I was 421 pounds. And it's no secret that you're starting to get that big because you're struggling to find clothes. I had started making the change from like 4XL to 5XL t shirts and going into like 50-inch pants, under the gut pants, you know what I mean? And I think if I would have been over the gut pants, if I'd have been over the gut, it probably would have been a 60+ inch pant. And even with all that, like you just know, but you don't. It's like you just kind of just shove it off. And when I finally saw that 421 pounds, I was like, okay, something's got to give. So right after that doctor's appointment, I went out on my way to work and called my wife, and I'm like, we've got to do something. I don't know what to do. I don't know what we're going to do. And she's an RN. And at the time, the floor that she worked on was a pancreatic unit, but they saw a lot of the people coming in having complications with previous like bariatric surgeries and such. So they'd had bariatric surgery 5, 10 years. They would come in and they'd end up on her floor. And so she would see all those complications. So she's like, you know what? I don't really want to focus on surgery right now. I don't want to look at bariatric surgery. I don't want to look at that as an option. Let's try this low carb thing. Okay. Like the idea of going low carb and giving up all the bread and the pasta and all that stuff was not ideal for me, but I was at that point ready to do whatever we needed to do. And I started going in looking for recipes and trying to find like the low carb soups and like really just trying to figure out what low carb actually was. And resources were a little slim at the time. And I kept coming back to this one recipe page for epileptic children. It was a ketogenic website all about epileptic kids. And the process again, going to more appointments for my hernia surgery and all that stuff. The doctor, my general practitioner, told me that was like, yeah, I'm trying to lose weight, get preparation for this surgery. And he's like, and he was like, well, you got to cut out your carbohydrates, you got to do this kind of thing, and like, and it's like you no potatoes. And I was like, well, we've already done the swap. We're doing, we're still really early in this process. And we started doing cauliflower mash instead of mashed potatoes and things like that. We were telling him that. It's like, well, if you want to lose weight, you got to be in ketosis. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? And he didn't really elaborate. He didn't go into any depth at all into what ketosis was. So me being the person that I am, I went down that rabbit hole. And I knew that I had seen the ketogenic website, the epileptic website. So I started, really digging into that. And I was really kind of getting into podcasts at the time. It's 2016. Podcasts were starting to explode. And I found two keto dudes. And I don't know if you were familiar with them or not. But they don't do it anymore. But two keto dudes were Carl and Richard. And Carl, both programmers, both overweight. And Carl living in the United States, Richard in Australia. and Richard was about to almost lost a toe to diabetes, and then started doing this low carb keto thing, and he started helping out Carl. They started a podcast, and then I kind of caught it a few months, maybe 6 months after they started, and I just binged the crap out of it. I was just listening to every episode, and then I decided, you know what? Let's do this. Let's do keto. Let's jump in. And this was, by the time we kind of got that far, I already had my surgery and was healed. And so we decided to start keto on top of the low carb we were already doing. I was already starting to see pretty good results. I was losing about 10 pounds a month. And especially when you're 400 pounds, that's relatively easy to do. You just go from having 1,000 carbohydrates a day down to a few hundred, and you're going to start losing weight. And one of the things that we also had to do, and I talk about this because most people have no concept of what a carbohydrate is, what carbohydrates are in. So I remember going to the grocery store with the wife, spending like a ridiculous amount of time looking at packaging, looking at ingredients, looking at the nutrition labels on anything and everything we could put our hands on, all of our favorite things, all the things that we thought were healthy, all the things that we'd been told were healthy for so very long, like quinoa and just all these things, and just looking at the packaging and everything, and realizing that they're all about the same amount of carbohydrates. Like everything's like 25 to 35 to 45 grams of carbohydrates a serving. You're like, that doesn't even make sense. And that was that whole process, getting into that, finding two keto dudes, and just really buckling down and starting to see, you know, significant weight loss. And that's really the beginning.
What would you say kind of made this time different though? Because I mean, like with most of us, we've struggled with weight for a long time. We've had, you know, scares and stuff. And, you know, this was 2016, right? You said about then?
Yes.
I mean, what was
Yeah,
about this time that you're like, okay, this is the one, and you've been able to stick with it? I mean, was it just this, hey, keto is something that I can do consistently, or, you know, just a difference in your mindset? What really changed then?
Well, I think there's a secret, like, oh, not so secret, but anybody who's been as big as I was, or even bigger, there's a hopelessness and kind of a helplessness that sets in. And whether you may not even really be aware of it, but it's kind of like it just kind of hangs over you a little bit. You may not even know it's there. Mm-hmm. And then when you kind of find something that starts to work, something like keto, where it starts to work, and you start to relearn satiety. Even I didn't have the words for it. Like I didn't even start talking about satiety until maybe a few years ago. Like relearning how to be satiated, relearning how to just not be starving all the time, relearning that, you know, I don't need certain things like that, the food noise, all these kind of buzzwords that I use a lot now weren't in my vernacular at the time. I couldn't put my finger on it. I didn't really know what it was. I just knew that I was able to finally kind of have a way of eating where I wasn't pecking like a bird. I didn't feel like I needed to hold back. I could eat as much as I wanted. And I think that was very helpful in the beginning, because when I would pack my lunches in the very beginning, I was packing my lunches probably enough for like 4 people. I'm like, you know, 10 to 12 boiled eggs, lunch meat, string cheese, pepperoni, whatever. Just packing a thick boy lunch, right? And I worked an office job, and there were always cake, candy. People have bowls of candy at their desk, and we were always kind of ravaging through the day. Like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, you start that like that dozing off type thing, and being in an office, and you're like, oh man, you either got to go to the vending machine and spend money, try to find a soda, or just hit people up who have candy. And then I realized at one point I wasn't doing that anymore. Because there were some real days where I was sitting there like legitimately battling falling asleep and probably could have got fired for it. And that realization paired with the idea that like up to that point, I was living in like a mental fog. And you don't realize it's almost like you're trying to like trudge day in and day out through a swamp and you're just trying to make headway, but you can't. And that just kind of lifted. And I remember one day sitting at my office desk and that had cleared. And it was like I was living in HD, like kind of like that scene in The Wizard of Oz where like the storm settled, the house has landed, and she goes to walk out that door and goes from black and white into the most vibrant colors you've ever seen. And it's like, okay, what's happening? Is this real? I don't ever want this to end. I don't want this to be a thing that I don't feel anymore. And I mean, it's legitimately unreal when you have felt that way for so long and it just kind of lifts. And like I said, I didn't have the words for it. There's satiety, the mental fog, like the mental clarity, just not being a slave to food anymore.
Yeah, I get you there. To go back a little bit, because a lot of people don't realize this either when they're transitioning off of a heavy carb diet and switching. How has your your diet changed since you first started? Because like you said, you would bring those thick boy lunches where it's just you're bringing enough for 4 people because that's what it took to get satiated because you don't have the other stuff. How's that changed over the years? If you were to pack another lunch like that today, would you need that much, or what would you be putting in that cooler?
Well, it transitioned over time, over the course of maybe a year or two, to where I wasn't eating during the day. I'd switched to like an OMAD. So at the time I was doing like 12-12. So I was, fasting for 12 hours, eating in a 12-hour window. I wasn't trying to be a hero. I wasn't trying to push the envelope. And then slowly I was like, okay, I think I can do, 14-10. And then after a while, I was like, okay, maybe I do 16-8. And then it got to the point where I've always been, and I hate to use the word lazy, but I feel like I didn't want to meal prep. I didn't want to bring stuff to work. I didn't want to have to deal with it. And I wanted to make sure I still ate dinner with the family. So I kind of got myself all weaned down to like an OMAD situation where eating within a 1 to 2 hour window. And so I wouldn't even bother bringing food to work. I wouldn't even worry about it. I would just eat when we got home. I would come home and cook dinner for the family. We would sit down, we would eat, and then that was the end of it. And you talk about what does food look like. So one of the first things that I remember putting a plate together, and maybe you would recognize this too. You start to put a plate together and like you realize like there's the optics of the plate itself look different. Like, what does the plate look like, right? Like, typically you would have, like, in my house, we'd have like macaroni and cheese and rice-a-roni and a little bit of meat and maybe some veggies. And then it gets to the point where you're just having like a meat and maybe veggies, and then there's nothing else. So the plate looks kind of empty, and it's like, it looks wrong. And you have to kind of come to terms with that. You have to kind of work through that. Because I mean, there is kind of an emotional issue to all this too, especially like as an emotional eater, as somebody who still struggles with emotional eating and having those times where something like trips me up and I'm like, man, and you just want to eat yourself. You want to eat about it, And yeah. So I think that's how that's changed. And realistically, over the last 10 years, it's how can I simplify things the most? How can I simplify? Like we used to overcomplicate in the beginning. We were trying to ketofy all the things that we were missing or all the things that we didn't want to let go of. And that kind of subsides. And you just kind of get to the point where like last night, I just threw 4 burger patties in the air fryer and put some cheese on it and called it a day. This morning I had some scrambled eggs and some cheese and called it a day. It just comes down to how can I make this as easy as I can for myself, because I've got other stuff to do.
Yeah. I'm right there. That's what my dinner's going to be tonight. Throw some burger patties out on the pellet grill, let them get nice. Throw maybe some cheese on a couple of them, and go to town. Because to your point, you said, well, not to say late. We are. Most people are lazy for a good chunk of their day because it's not their main focus. You don't want to sit around and think about food all day. You don't want to try and come up with an elaborate, how do I make this fancy dish? It's how can I eat every night, be like you said, satiated, not hate myself, not have to spend so much time doing it, and then when I am hungry, have an alternative that's easy that I can reach for. You have some boiled eggs in the fridge, or you have some bacon, or whatever that is, because if there's too much friction, you're not going to do it for very long. You can only stomach, super, super hard for so long. People like to say, oh, motivation and consistency is like a muscle. The more you work it, the bigger it gets. True. You'll get better at saying no to stuff. But also you need rest time. You need time when you're not being too strenuous on yourself. Even the people in the gym, getting huge and bulky, they have rest time. So you need to have easy that you can fall back on, or else you're going to fall back on what else is easy, and it's like fast food and just junk. So absolutely no, that's a great point that a lot of people I think miss, and me personally, that's been a thing. I started the big guy grind over a year ago, and was doing great for half a year. And then life happened. We bought a house. We moved in. Stuff started getting complicated. And what's the first thing to go? The thing that literally should take the least amount of thought. So kind of fell off the wagon there, and get to the point where you get some news, you get some blood work, whatever it is, and it kicks you, and you're like, okay, I need to get back into this, but I can't do it the way I did it before because it didn't work. And that's where a lot of people as well make the mistake, is they think that they failed so they can't do it again. Well, you failed, learn from it. You have two ways that you're going to learn. You're going to fail and learn and pivot and learn why you failed and not make that mistake again, or hear somebody else say it, like yourself, like me, saying, okay, it was too hard for them. They're no different than I am, so I need to take their advice and not fail at myself. So there's a couple ways that you can get around those. So it's really important to have people like yourself out there sharing kind of your wins and your losses, which is a big one. You see a lot of people talking about, I've been carnivore, I've been keto for 10 years. Okay, what happens 3 years in when you eat a piece of cheesecake or something, right? They don't talk about that, and that's a human experience that we all go through. So really, really motivating to hear you talk about those failures and the struggles that you still have, because it doesn't just go away, right?
No.
It's a addiction. You look at people with any addiction, and they're lifelong. They have struggles that's going to come up. You used to smoke 20 years ago. You walk by somebody smoking a cigarette, you might, oh, I want that.
Yeah.
But it's just different with food, because you have to eat, right? You don't have to smoke, right? But you have to eat something. So that's the big one. So how'd you pivot from this into KetoSimple? What was that? Hey, I need to start sharing this with more people.
Well, started with Instagram. I was really into, I started kind of like with the podcasting, like listening to podcasts, and I started finding more YouTube, being into YouTube kind of, but I wanted to be YouTube, but I didn't want to do this. It wasn't this that I wanted to do. I wanted to do other things. I wanted to be a YouTuber and other avenues of creativity. But with, I started posting my food on Instagram, and I switched over to KetoSimple. I don't know where that came from. It just popped out, and kind of pigeonholed myself a little bit, but I didn't know 10 years ago, like I was going to pigeonhole myself into KetoSimple. But, I'm happy to know that, like, even with, because I think there's a spectrum, and I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Barry or not. Mm-hmm. But he has the kind of the coined phrase, the proper human diet, and it's a spectrum. So like for me, just kind of looking at it, so like you kind of at one end, you've got like single ingredient whole foods, lowish carbs. You're doing, maybe less than 100 grams of carbohydrates a day, all the way through keto, ketovore, like low carb, whatever, maybe some paleo in there, whatever. Then get all the way to like to the other end of it with like the lion diet, like just beef, salt, water. And I think, I didn't understand that at the time when I came up with KetoSimple. And I just started, like I said, started with with Instagram and started trying to find other people, trying to follow other people, and trying to build relationships. But it wasn't as easy as YouTube is now to build relationships. And that's one of my main goals, to build relationships, build community. That's like when you hit me up, I was like, okay. And I was like, how do you want to, how do you want to communicate? Do you want to, because email seems so formal. So I was like, well, let's see, you've got an Instagram, let's do that. There's a messaging app for creators inside of YouTube. We can do that. So I'm always trying to bridge that gap. And I think that's what led me to YouTube, but it took me a while to get to YouTube. It's like my first video that's up came out in 2020. I actually just recorded it. My buddy edited it for me because I had no idea what I was doing. And so that sat there from like February of 2020 until I took over my YouTube and started doing every day for a while in 2021, the first day of 2021. And I've been running with it ever since. And, but even the first couple of years, I didn't have a community here. It took a while. It took a while to find a community and to find people and start doing live streams and just really opening up and trying to, connect. Because I think that's the most important piece of this is like you said, for me, to not just focus on success like a lot of creators are going to do, like follow me and you could find success too. And, I'm a health coach and I do all these things and I'm involved heavily in the community, but it's like, I also have to be realistic. I have to be genuine and I have to say, you know what? I fail almost every single day. It's just a part of life. Because I can't paint this pretty little picture that everything is going to be perfect and you're going to be wonderful and it's all going to work out. No, it's just there's a struggle to it. Is it easier? And over the last 10 years, has it gotten significantly easier? Absolutely. Has the food noise gone away? Yes. Has, my satiety come and I don't have to fight as hard? Yes. But are there still little battles to win? Yes. Because we're human and none of us are perfect. And I would always be mindful of anybody who claims to be close to perfect or I haven't done this in 15 years. Okay, liar. Maybe they're not. Maybe, but it's unlikely. And I think that's what's so very valuable here.
Yep. No, I agree. It's just kind of hard to believe because you see where you start and you see the things that you go through on a day to day, and you try and compare yourself to the people that are, 3 months, 6 months, 10 months, 10 years down the road further than you, and you're like, how do they not struggle ever? Right. And then it's a little off putting because you're like, well, something's wrong with me. I'm the only one having these cravings. And then, there's nobody addressing that. So it is very important. And then, people like me is, I hopped on here and I started doing this a year ago, not because I wanted to do it for a living, because I needed to do it to keep living. Right. You get to the point where you're so metabolically ill that you're like, I got to do something. It's got to be uncomfortable because what's been comfortable has led me to here, and it's going to kill you if you keep doing it. So it's just a weird step. So I'm always kind of curious what got people, kind of in front of the camera talking. Because here's the thing, I'm so late to the game. Nothing I say is ever going to be really original. It's just saying the same stuff in a different packaged way that might relate to somebody where somebody else said it and it didn't. Because not everybody's meant for everybody else. I've heard some people say something. I'm like, yeah, no, that makes sense. And then I'll hear it from like your Ken Berries. And I'm like, okay, that's how I needed to hear the exact same thing that someone else said. So it's super important. But yeah, no, that's awesome. I love to hear it. Kind of where are you at now in your journey? You said it's getting easier. What are your future goals from where you're at now for your health and your channel and everything? Where do you want to be, this much further in the future?
Oh, I just want to continue building my consistency, both in my health, both in the channel, both with the community. I'm always pushing and doing things like trying to do little meetups and things like I've got a meetup coming August the 8th here in Indianapolis, because at a BW3s. And I'm always pushing people. You don't have to wait for someone to do a big meetup. You just put one together yourself. It doesn't have to be big and fancy. It's some convention with speakers. Just get together with a few people. Maybe 20 people will show up. Maybe 5 people will show up. But just put it together and do it. So, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. I just, I try to get to conferences like Ketopalooza, and now there's big ones like Meat Stock, and there's all these conferences, and I would love to go to all those, but they're so expensive. Just working with amazing other amazing creators, making friends, building relationships, and trying to do the best I can to help as many people as I can. And one thing you said that I wanted to make sure that I came back and touched on is you said that there's, you're not saying anything that someone else hasn't said already, but the point of it is you may not be saying anything new, but you're saying it from your perspective. And it's very valuable to hear all of these stories from all of these different people, because we're in a situation where everybody wants data. Everybody wants, well, there hasn't been a study on this. There hasn't been a study on that. Well, all of us coming together and sharing our stories is anecdotal data. It's very important. And I think the more people like me, the more people like you, the people who come out and have their channels, and whether they have 100 subscribers or 2 million subscribers, it doesn't matter. Coming out and sharing your story, sharing your journey is so very valuable, because just hearing it from me means something. Hearing it from the two of us, that's double the power. And then we get more and more people coming out and they're sharing their journey, and your journey may be significantly different from mine. You may have had a different starting point. You may have had a different path, but it's so very valuable because your journey may resonate with people that hear your story and hear mine, but they go, Anthony's story really, really touched me. And it was so important to hear it from him, because that's kind of what I went through. And I think that's so very valuable, because my story will resonate with some, your story is going to resonate with some, and we've got millions of people to help.
Yeah, and I mean, people that are just a day or a week or a month into their journey should absolutely also be sharing, because we don't just hire professors. The people that have, lost 200 pounds and are on the other side of their goals, they're great to hear from. They've been there, they've done that. But the people that are just a week, a month, taking the first big step further than you are just as important, because that's the step you're about ready to face, right? If you haven't started your journey yet, and you have that nagging voice that you keep trying to silence with food or for however, and it starts coming up, you need that person that's, hey, I started my journey a week ago, I'm already seeing some good results, I'm feeling better already, it's wild, right? I stopped eating carbs, and now all of a sudden I'm sleeping through the night. All the stuff that comes along with the changes, the positive changes you're making in life, those are just as important to hear, because, when I'm starting out, I don't want to see somebody that's 180 pounds tell me how they used to be 400 and only see that perspective. I want the person that's exactly where I was, but a week ahead of me, because that's going to pull me along just as much, if not more, than somebody that's been there and done that 6 years ago. But they're all valuable, right? You need to have the bigger picture where you can see and talk about maintenance, because that's a big thing too, is you're not just losing the weight to lose the weight. You're losing the weight to change the lifestyle that's going to keep it off. Otherwise, you're going to fall into the same stuff a lot of us do, and that's gain it right back. So everybody's voice is super, super important to hear from. And everybody, it doesn't even matter. It's universal. Everybody has something to teach you, whether it's in this or in something else. It's just being willing to understand, listen, and compare perspectives, like you said. So that's super, super important to understand.
Yeah, 100%. Just like one of the things that I talked about this morning is I do a live stream on Sunday mornings, and it happens to be Sunday today, is how do we get, how do we get people to be ready? If people aren't ready, what do you do? And unfortunately, there's not an easy answer to that, because we all have people in our life that we wish were ready. We need to be ready, but they're just not there yet. And you talked about smoking a few minutes ago, and that was one of the things that I kind of called back on for myself, as I quit smoking in 2010. And I had wanted to quit for a long time. And it took me being ready to quit. I had to get to the point where I had that last cigarette that in the pack, and I just didn't buy any more, and I had to be ready for it. My mind were in alignment, and I just said, okay, that's enough. I'm not buying anymore. I then jumped headfirst into a different addiction, coffee. Probably actually in the long run spent more money, but better for myself. But yeah, I think, you know, and I think it can't be overstated just how important this community is. You know, the people that come in and talk in the chats. Like I can see we've got Charlie and Maritza, and we've got Alicia and Donna and all these wonderful people in the chat. And, you know, they show up consistently. They're there. Most of them or all of them were there this morning in my live today. And I think it's so very valuable to see them, for me to come on and know when I push go live, I'm going to have these familiar faces or names in this instance that are there keeping me accountable.
Yep. Well, and it's important I imagine it's important for them too, because a lot of us, we do feel alone, and that's why we started, down this, where it's like, yeah, I'm having these cravings, I'm eating, we all have the story of, I bought like 4 or 5 cheeseburgers and ate them all in the parking lot, right? I pretended I was on the phone with somebody. Oh, what do you want for your order? Because you're, ashamed. And know that you're not the only one that does that. It's almost a trope at this point. It happens to literally everybody, but it's so easy to convince yourself you're the weird one. You're the one that's doing the stuff nobody else has. So having community of people that are going to show up when you press play, that's awesome. That's huge. More and more people need to be a part of stuff exactly like that, because talking to people that have been there, done that, or doing that is life-saving.
Yeah, and I see Charlie has a question. Charlie says, if the scale goes up after you've been consistent, what story do you tell yourself? And I think this is a very valuable question as well, because it can happen. So I think it depends. So if you are a person that you start to see the scale go in the opposite direction, what I would try to do for myself would be kind of get back to basics, and also look at something like, why is the scale going up? Because, something that Dr. Barry talked about in his private group yesterday, was one of the guys in there was talking about where he's at his age, and Dr. Barry was saying, the fact that as we go into this kind of journey, then we're going to start eating more and more protein, and our body has kind of an amount of muscle that it will automatically build, regardless of how much you work out or not. If you're just an upright human being and you're not like bed bound or whatever, just being an upright human, you're going to have a certain level of muscle, and that will grow, especially as you prioritize protein and fats and eliminate the carbohydrates. And you can't forget the electrolytes. Very, very valuable and important, the electrolytes, which I think are even more paramount than focusing on the carbs in the very, very beginning. You lose the carbs, you up the electrolytes. That's going to significantly improve your quality of life. But I think if the scale is going up, you just look at, well, what am I doing? You look at, what have I done for the last couple of weeks? And then also understand that the body is going to fluctuate in weight. And also, don't be so prone to prioritize the information that you get from the scale, because the scale can be a filthy liar. I don't even have, like, our scale, it's needed batteries for about a year. I haven't put batteries in it, and I don't care. Because it's a struggle to step on the scale. If it's up a pound, then you're like, what did I do wrong? No matter how much you know, no matter how much you understand. I've done like a 2-week fast, and the last day of the 2-week fast, I gained weight. It doesn't make any sense. I'm sure if you get into the metabolics and you get into the nitty gritty of everything, it would probably make sense. But like, I just had water and unflavored electrolytes for 2 weeks. And the scale went up at the end, like the last was like down, up. And you're like, why? So you have to imagine that happens even when you're doing everything right. Even when you're consistent and the scale is going to fluctuate because you don't know why your body decided to hold on to an extra pound of water that day. You don't really understand it. But the chances of you gaining 3 pounds of fat in a day is not likely. And I think that there's such a culture that revolves around the scale that it's a bigger detriment than it is a help, because it is only one single data point that tends to throw everybody off and everybody gives up because of it.
Yeah, you're already doing the right thing by tracking it, but you're not tracking day to day. It's a trend. You know, yeah, you had that
Yeah.
day that went up 2 pounds. Weird. I wonder what's going to happen at the end of the month. Hey, I'm down 10. Right. So that was just like you said, a gallon of water is 8 pounds. Right. Did you drink more water yesterday? Did you not drink more water? There's so many factors. So, I mean, I think the main thing is just you're tracking it and you're paying attention, because that's what gets you in the trouble is you don't pay attention. And to your point earlier, I've been thinking about this lately. What I think a lot of people do need to try when they're not ready to get started is just track everything for a week and don't change anything. Just see what you're doing, because it's really hard to give somebody direction somewhere if you don't know where they're at. Hey, I need to get to Columbus, Ohio. Great. Where are you at? I don't know. Can't give you direction, right? Hey, I'm in Tallahassee. We can type that in the Google. We'll get you there. So, sit down, track all the stuff like your calories, your weight, do all this stuff. It's like, man, I'm eating 7,000 calories a day and I'm not moving a whole lot, right? Now though, that's the problem right there. You're eating 7,000. That's what 7,000 looks like. Let's back it down. So I think that might be something for people that aren't quite ready to start, is just seeing where they're at and then trying to find the smallest friction, that they can start to add to get their, that ball rolling, because it's the initial momentum that really gets a lot of people. Like you said, they get going hard for a week and the scale goes up a pound. Like that first week's nice. You drop 10 pounds, you're like, oh man, this is working, and then it bounces back. You're like, I didn't change anything. And then you spiral. And a lot of us, we spiral and we go into eating again, right? And it just keeps them unready. So there might be something to that, but I think just the tracking in general and paying attention to what's going on with yourself is the big thing.
Yeah, I think it's important to track, but it has to be more than just the scale. I would say, you
Hmm.
know, the $2 tape measure from Walmart, just the tape. Just get something like that. Have your spouse help you, have someone help you. And I know that yeah, like you said, that the scale, like especially for someone like me who's already, prone to emotional eating, if that scale gives me that emotional feedback, I'm gonna be like, well, screw you. I didn't want to do this anyway. Like, and yeah. And Charlie says, the scale, or the phrase non-scale victory subtly establishes the scale as the primary measure, with everything else being an exception, a consolation prize almost. Yeah, I think because I talk about non-scale victories as well as non-scale discoveries. Because there's going to be things like, a victory would be like the fact that, you may not have seen movement on the scale, but your pants fit better. You've had to get new pants. Non-scale discovery would be like, for me, like when I didn't know I didn't know what was coming. I didn't know what to expect, and then I was able to get off of allergy meds, or
Hmm.
I didn't need to take ibuprofen every day, all day, every day, because my joints didn't bother me and the pain went away that I didn't even realize I had. Those are non-scale discoveries, and I think, yeah, I think Charlie is right. But non-scale victories, I think. But I don't know how easy it would be to get everybody just to say, the scale doesn't matter, because people like that feedback. It's like when we first started, or when I first started doing keto, I went and I bought a little container of those, the pee strips, the urine strips. You get them at Walmart, they're like $7. And if you want it to turn purple, that shows you're in ketosis, you're putting out ketones or whatever, right? Now, one of the things with that, I always have to clarify for people, because they'll say, "Well, those P strips stopped working. What am I doing wrong?" Well, if they work, and then stop, it means you did everything right. Because in the beginning, so what those strips do for people who might be listening who don't know is those strips pick up acetoacetate. And when you start a ketogenic lifestyle, before you're keto adapted, your body is producing and throwing out the acetoacetate. It's basically it's akin to, it's basically similar to acetone. So it's part of the ketone body. It's part of like the whole setup. But then you get to the point where you're now keto adapted. You're a few weeks more in. Those strips don't work anymore because you're not throwing out all that acetoacetate. Now you're producing beta hydroxybutyrate, and you're then able to be like full on keto. You're like really in ketosis and all of that. And then people will struggle with that because nobody ever stops to explain, because first off, those strips weren't really designed for what we're using them for. They're there to pick up ketoacidosis. So they're there for type 1 diabetics to see if they're throwing out the acetoacetate, which is a bad thing. So for them. But like the scale, you have another way to try to measure something that can throw you off. You're like, oh, what am I doing wrong? I did my 20 carbs yesterday, and well, maybe I had 21. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe that one extra carb threw me off. It's like, slow down. It's gonna be okay.
No, I'm right there. I'm right there with, I think you said it was Charlie with the metabolic victories, because losing about 150 pounds is what I'm shooting for, ultimately. But over the next, I think I have like 70-ish days left. It's to improve my blood work. I got my blood work done, and it was bad, right? They were like, hey, so I don't know if you guys know much about, triglycerides. But they were like, yeah, between like, 200 to 400, they're not sure if whether or not they even need to treat it. If you have over 500, you're looking at, increased risk of pancreatitis. And he's like,
Right.
yours is almost 1,500. And I'm like, that's not great. He's like, no, we definitely need to do that. So that's my goal over the next 70 is just improve those, because he's like, hey, we're gonna put you on this medication, help you lower triglycerides, stop eating refined carbs. And that was the kick in the butt where it's like, okay, I need to just not, because this isn't the first time I've had the bad blood work. Back when I was 29, I was diagnosed as diabetic, and I remember I was like, okay, great, that sucks. What do I do to fix it? And the answer I got was, you won't. You're just going to be dealing with it for the rest of your life. You're going to be on insulin and metformin, and there's nothing you can do to get off it. You're actually going to be put on more medications in the future for depression and anxiety because it sucks, and you're going to need it. And I'm like, okay, I understand that. What do I do? And they're like, well, we'll have you meet with a specialist. You meet with the specialist, like, okay, so here's how you're going to eat cake. And I'm like, stop, wait. Why are you showing me how to eat cake? How do I get off this? Like, oh, you're not going to get off of it. So then, you go and you do your own research and discover stuff like, Dr. Berry. 3 months later, I was off the insulin. 3 months after that, off the metformin, right? Just by saying, okay, what if I just don't do the thing that caused it in the first place? And it's weird the way that works. It's not about what you're putting in your, you're taking. It's what about you're not taking, right? I'm not taking in all this stuff that's putting me in this situation. So, and then you slip off, you slip up, and it happens. And here we are back to my triglycerides are ridiculous. So that's the victory I'm shooting for here. The weight loss is going to be the byproduct to help stay metabolically healthy. But it's the, like I said, not doing this for a living, doing this to keep living, because that stuff gets pretty serious pretty quickly.
Now, is that the only number that you're concerned about, is the triglycerides?
No, the blood sugar's up again, just for the same stuff, but it's not nearly as bad as the triglycerides. I think we're sitting around almost 9 there, which again, not great on the A1C, but it's not as that could be bad, right? Pancreatitis is nothing to really joke around with. So those are the two main. And what's funny about the whole thing is it's like, you did this to yourself. You fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, because here we are again, right? The first time was like, hey, I didn't know any better. Now I can't really, use that excuse. And that's, again, what got me kind of back at this. Because like I said, 9 months ago, I was doing great. I was losing weight. I was eating well. And then you just slip up and you just kind of go into, I'll deal with it later mindset. And then later becomes now. You do it now or you won't do it any, ever. So.
It doesn't all. I mean, the thing about it is we're humans and we're kind of dumb. Like, I mean, let's be real here. Like, it's like I am in the same boat. Like, I have been doing this for 10 years and I still make the same mistakes that I've made over the last 10 years. It's like, it's okay. I mean, and I use okay loosely, but you know what I mean? Like, you're not alone here.
Mm-hmm.
You're in good company. And you're self-aware enough to know that you know, A, know what to do. B, you know you need to get back on it. You know, and I imagine that, you know, hopefully your spouse is supportive and pushes you, as you know, in the right direction as well. For me, like my spouse, we usually make the same mistakes at the same time. Because I'll be like, I'll ask her a question. She goes, yes, that sounds great. Let's do it. And I'm like, stop that. But you know, yep. And I do have to laugh at what Charlie said. Charlie says, your doc also prescribed hopelessness.
You're not wrong. That's
that's like, really? That's the best you've got? Like, it's going to be like this forever. Yeah. Like, come on, bro. Like,
yeah,
give me
like I said, it just kind of ticked me off. I was like, okay, I understand that's what you said, but what do I do? And like, oh no, you'll just take more medicine. It's ridiculous, and you stand back from it, and then I'm not even lying with this. 6 months, and when I got taken off the insulin and then the metformin, I remember because I had a nurse practitioner. She wasn't the one that said all this. She was good. It was the specialist that was saying this. But she's like, you should talk to people, you know, about getting off this, because I just didn't think you were gonna. I'm like, well, you know, that says something, because they're not trying to fix it. It's just maintain it. Like, hey, you're really bad. So when you eat cake from now on, this is what you're going to have to do. Because there's a good percentage of people that won't, right? They're going to get hit with it and they won't.
They should treat it like peanuts. They should treat it like peanut allergies. Like, you know, I would explain it to your doctor, like, you know, hey, you know, like, I shouldn't probably eat cake if I need insulin and metformin. Well, what do you mean you shouldn't eat cake? Cake is to eat cake. So what you're saying is, if I was allergic to peanuts, it's okay to eat that PB&J and just bam with that EpiPen, right? Like, come on, man.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, and you know, it was my first time being exposed to it, because you know, we all you know, come from, you know, wherever. You know, I grew up in the 2000s, and it was food pyramid, and nobody really taught, you know, this stuff. I remember when I was in college, because I played college football, and I remember a coach one time came up to me and he was, hey, cut out all the fat, right? You just need to eat just carbs, protein. That's 100% what you need to do. So yeah, I was eating like sandwiches with like just the leanest turkey breast and no fat. And then here, you know, I was, after I left school and stopped playing football, I kept eating like I was, you know, training every day, doing conditioning, doing weight training and stuff. So I kept eating that same way, because that's the way that I was eating. I just cut out the activity. And, you know, you fast forward that 10 years of nothing but carbs and protein, it's gonna bite you hard, especially when you're used to eating 4,000 to 7,000 calories a day, depending on whether you're in season or out of season, right? Because I've never been a little guy, and you know, you can only do that for so long before you're going to face the consequences. And you know, it wasn't very common back then, where it's like, no, you really don't need to eat that many carbs. You don't really need to focus on that. Fat's actually not going to kill you, right? Fat doesn't make you fat. It was all that just kind of misinformation around that time. It's kind of a weird period of time, because before that, people were more than comfortable slaughtering and eating pigs and eating, you know, the gristle and all the stuff, and they were eating kind of more intuitively. And then we had that weird bit in the middle where we just kind of got off track real hard, and now a lot of people are coming back around to, you know, the proper human diet.
Yeah, and I don't ever think, I have this discussion a lot when it comes to the medical field, because we put a lot of villainy into the medical field. Now, do I think there is some? Absolutely. Is there some just downright despicable things that happen with insurance and pharmaceuticals, and even in with, you know, administrations of doctors and all these things? Absolutely, because people are going to people. But also, people are going to people, and they're going to go to college for 10 years to become a doctor, and they're going to get inundated with all the information. They're going to learn it. They're going to live it. They're going to love it. And that's what they're going to eat, breathe, sleep for their residency and all these things that they go through to become a doctor. They're going to get out, and then what are they taught? They're taught, if I try to get you to do something, if I try to give you a recommendation and you follow that recommendation to the best of your ability and you continue to get worse, well, it's obviously not my recommendation that's the problem. It's you. You didn't do it. You were non-compliant. That's how they see it. And it's the same thing as, like, when the doctor sold you sadness and hopelessness, like he was doing that because that's what he sees. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily that he was not trying to be like the bearer of bad news, I guess, but that's just what he was. And I think so many doctors are just so conditioned that even I had a GP a couple years ago when I was working in an office, and I would go see, like, I worked in this high-rise building. We had everything inside the building. If I wanted to use their dentist, there was a dentist in the building. But I was going downstairs to get my blood work done, and I was there for like 2 years, so I had a chance to get blood work back to back, and my blood work got better year over year. And the second time, she was like, how much red meat do you eat? I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, do you eat red meat once a week? And I'm like, no, I eat red meat every day. And she goes, well, you ever thought about cutting back? And I'm like, I was already in this. Well, not really into the YouTube, but I was already been doing keto for a long time. And I'm like, my blood work has gotten better year over year. Yes. Yes. Then why would you tell me to do something different? That makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, it's wild. Have you ever thought, how much red meat do you eat? Like, per, you talking like pounds per day? What do you want? What metric do you want to give me here?
5 steaks a day? Like, I mean, have you seen Sean Baker? I mean,
1 pound ground, 1 pound cut, right? So
yeah. Not enough some days. It's expensive now.
Yeah, really. What's kind of your go-tos, on a weekly basis? Like, what do you kind of have in rotation that you just kind of have on autopilot? Like, for me, we always do like Taco Tuesday, where it's, ground beef. We'll throw in a little cheese. I got to be careful with cheese. It makes it way too palatable, and I could put down, way more. But that's our go-to. And then one of the big ones here, where I live in Iowa, is the Iowa chops, right? We got a lot of pork here, and I know people are back and forth about pork. My significant other, she can't have it. It's one of those things that you have an intolerance to.
We have intolerance that gives us heartburn.
Really, to pork?
Yeah.
Man,
I don't know. I don't know if it'd be because you have to like cook it all the way. There's no like medium rare pork. You know what I mean?
You can do 145.
Bacon is okay from time to time. If my wife eats bacon early in the morning, might be okay. Mm-hmm. But we used to make like pork roasts and all these things, and they just got to the point where we can't eat them anymore. So really, for us, it's pretty streamlined anymore. It's real. I mean, for us, there's hamburger, steaks if we can get them on sale, chicken thighs and like either butter bob style, which would be deep fried in lard with the skin on. What else do we eat? Our coffee with butter and heavy cream. I mean, that's really comes down to maybe every once in a while we'll make some chili, or as it gets cooler, we'll make some I'll make like broccoli cheddar soup sometimes. There's a great soup that I love. It was coined by Keto Chow, but it's a pumpkin sausage soup. Sounds not good. So good. Oh, it's so good.
Pumpkin sausage. That sounds interesting. Huh. Yeah, no, have you ever tried, so you say steak when it's on sale. Like, what's your go-to cut there? Because what I always recommend people do, if they can find it, and there's only one place near me that I can find it, but it's really out of the way to go get it, is picanha. You'll buy a picanha roast.
Yeah, we cannot find it anywhere here.
It's It's amazing. It's
You
like
and
a New York
Christy
strip of
talk
butter.
about picanha. Come on now.
Yeah, it's New York strip of butter, and it was like $9 a pound. You buy the whole roast, you cut steaks out of it, and you're like, this is awesome, because you're gonna pay 14, $15 a pound for regular New York strip, or 18 for ribeye, which we did. We do get periodically when we've been, hey, we've been doing this pretty well. We're gonna stick to it, so we'll get a reward, and it's nice to reward yourself like that. But yeah, picanha when you can get it. I don't know if anybody else has tried it, but it's top two favorite steaks for me.
Yeah, I've had picanha. We in 2024, the last year that I went to KetoPalooza, last year they had it. They're having it again this year, but 2024 we went all to like the night before KetoPalooza kicked off. We went to the Brazilian steakhouse, and I had initially thought it was going to be about 10 or 15 of us, and it ended up being like 45 of us. But yeah, we got together. Keep the picanha coming, rare, please. You know, but yeah, picanha. You and Russ, you would get along with Russ, homesick Buckeye. He lives down in Jacksonville, and he's always like, "Yeah, I get my picanha for like $7.99 a pound," and I'm like, "We can't get it here." And I know that there's the fat cap and all that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever it's called, like they'll call it what, sirloin cap or whatever. Yeah, we just for whatever reason in Central Indiana, you can't get it. I know that I've talked with Chris Cook in Nashville. He and Ash can find it sometimes down where they are. And I was like, next time I come down to visit, I was going to bring a cooler and try to bring some home.
Yeah, it's in one spot. It's a Fairway. If anybody is familiar with those here in the Iowa area, it's a Fairway Meat Mart in Beaverdale, over in Des Moines, and it's the only place I've ever seen it ever. And I'll go when I do go over there. It's like an hour and a half out of my way, to go that way. But I'm buying like 5 or 6 different roasts, right? Because it's that good, and you're like it's half the price of what you get for this quality of meat. So yeah, that's always the go-to.
Yeah, Alicia's like, you almost got to sell plasma to go grocery shopping for beef. Yeah, I mean, we got steaks the other day, like last week or whatever. Kroger had them on sale for $10.99 a pound, and I bought, I don't know, like $200 worth. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I do what I can. I do what I can to buy cheap. Like, I'm not above my freezer. I will buy the frozen Walmart patties. I mean, I do what I can to get beef into my body. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I've got a 5-pound roll in there, or 3 or 4, a pound of beef that I got to cook tonight. I do what I can. Is it the cleanest? No, or maybe. I mean, it's just beef, hopefully. But, I don't care about grass fed. I mean, grass finished. It doesn't bother me. Right now, go like at eggs. We eat a lot of eggs, and I've got a waffle recipe that I use weekly. It's just waffles, mayonnaise. I use Chosen Foods mayonnaise and beef gelatin, and mix it up, and then put it in the waffle maker. Make egg and cheese sandwiches. Oh, they're so good.
I'm gonna have to steal that idea. I'm gonna have to find that. You have a video on it?
Yes, I do, sir.
Okay, then I will be snagging that, because egg and cheese sandwiches are
And
guilty
they're
pleasure.
good, and like they're crispy, and like you can make them. You can make them in batches, and then like put them in the fridge in a Ziploc too. And then just put them either like you can put them in the toaster if you have one still, or the air fryer works.
Yeah, that we have. Well, to being smart and buying the meat ahead of time, that was our problem. Is we had I bought a half beef, and we probably had we had the brisket left. We would buy bulk like hamburger and throw in there, and it's just been so hot this summer. We had the deep freeze out in the thing, and it died on us, and about $500 worth of meat just pouring out the bottom of the deep freeze. But we got it up, cleaned it out, and as of today, we moved it into the house. That kind of sucked because those things are heavy. But we got in the front room, so I got one of those alarm systems on it. So if it goes up over 30 degrees, it's going to let me know this time. Because I just, you have something like that happen. You're like, that sucks, right? I got all that hamburger on sale, and now they don't have it, and here we are. So,
oh man, I tell you a story. I had just got like a relative of mine had asked us to hold on to their freezer. They were moving and they needed a place to put their freezer. I still have it. It's like 6 years ago. So like whatever, it's my freezer now. But they gave it to me and it was empty. and I had gone to Kroger, and they have those like little 1 pound bricks of ground beef, like the grass-fed, grass-finished, like organic. They want like $8 a pound for it. I went in there one day and they had them marked at $1.99. I bought 55 of them. That lady was looking at me like I was insane, and I'm like, I'm saving a ridiculous amount of money here. I'm saving, what was that, 80%? Like, anyway, I just took it home, put them all in there, and we ate on those for a couple. Like, we probably ate on those because we wouldn't always eat those, because I was really the only person in the house that liked the grass-fed, grass-finished. But now we have 8 people living in our house. So we have our youngest son and our daughter who live here, her fiance, our 2 grandchildren, and our bonus son. And our other son just bought a house. So he and his fiance live in a house. So we have 2 freezers in the garage, and then the freezer that's attached to the refrigerator. And they've basically taken it over. So there's always like frozen pizzas and frozen like ice cream and stuff. I know in one of my freezers, I have a 20-pound turkey in there. And then I also have a 25-pound chuck roll in one of them too that I got, that I have to go, and I don't know how I didn't want to freeze it, but I didn't have a choice. And I was like, now thawing it's going to be a pain in the ass. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do now.
Yeah,
that's why it's still in the freezer.
What do you like to do with the chuck? I think the poor man's brisket is kind of our go-to around here, where you cook it like a brisket over 8 hours on the pellet smoker, and it is probably one of my favorite ways to have chuck. But you can also do like the Mississippi mud roast, where you throw it in the thing with some pepperoncinis or something.
I'm going to cut it really little, and then I'm just going to cook it really hot and fast in the skillet, and then just have a good time. I would love to be like, you know what, I'm going to make a brisket, but I'm like, I don't have 24 hours to spend cooking a piece of meat. Like, I have a pellet smoker. Well, I could put it out in the driveway, plug it in, and let it go. But I'm like, man, like, I don't know.
What's nice about the poor man's chuck roast, brisket with the chuck roast, is it's only 8 hours, right? There's no overnight. You just start in the morning, similar to a crock pot.
And that's why I get on to Chris Cooking Nashville sometimes, because he's got these amazing recipes. I don't know if you're familiar with him or not. Are you familiar with Chris Cooking Nashville?
I might have seen him. I don't know off the top of my head.
He's got amazing recipes, but you got to be willing to put the work in. Like, he's got a carnivore mashed potato recipe that is ridiculous. Like, he made it for me, and I'm like, it was almost indistinguishable from real mashed potatoes.
Really? What's the base of it?
Eggs, like egg whites. Egg whites, cream cheese, mozzarella, like fresh mozzarella cheese. I think some garlic powder. I'm trying to think of all what was in it. Some toasted gelatin, some toasted beef gelatin. I don't know. He's a wizard.
Yeah, it sounds like
he's I don't know. He's into some food alchemy.
What's his name? I'm gonna look up his videos after this.
Chris Cooking Nashville.
Okay, gotcha. And I'm gonna have to find your waffle one as well, because the egg sandwiches, they're just too good, right? That was always the draw. When you're on your way to work or something, you swing into McDonald's, grab a couple egg sandwiches.
Oh man, for me, like too, like I started doing it to where like I'd pull the because I've got a 4x4 waffle maker, so it makes 4 waffles, so 2 sandwiches at a time. I pull that off, and I've already got my eggs whipped for the scrambled eggs. I just pour it right into the waffle maker, close it for like less than a minute, flip them up, so you got the 4x4. So like the top 2 will probably have most of the egg, and the other egg is kind of dripped down to the other 2. I'll take the little scraps and flip it up, and then put cheese, and then flip it over, and then put it onto one sandwich, and then repeat. And then it's like I don't even have to use another pan. It's just, how do I eat and make my life better without being overworked, because it's crazy.
Yep, you're right. And that's kind of what we talked about earlier. Just make it simple. Otherwise, you're not going to do it. If it's too complicated, you can do it for a bit. It's not going to be the rest of your life.
That was the one part of my name I got right.
Yeah, you nailed it with the name. It's just like, what's the saying? Kiss, keep it stupid simple, or if you want to be meaner, the other way. So KetoSimple. I like it. Even if think it pigeonholed you a little, I don't think so. I think you're good. Are you still pretty much keto, or have you experimented more with like the carnivore, ketovore world as well?
Um, I would say I'm more in line with, for most part, more carnivore, but it's not really like an identity. There's not really an identity to it. It's what's easiest. Like triple B
Hmm.
and E is basically easy. You're gonna beef, butter, bacon, eggs,
Hmm.
easy. And then, I mean, do I still eat other stuff? Sure, sometimes. Sometimes I want some pizza stuff. Sometimes I want some, sometimes I make the broccoli cheddar soup. Sometimes I make that pumpkin sausage soup. I mean, there's no hard and fast thing with me. It's just consistency and simplicity.
Hmm. Yeah, I think me and a lot of other people, we get hung up on the details. Can I use this seasoning, or can I cook it this way, with coconut oil, or do I have to use bacon grease? Or people they pull it apart, and then it kind of stops losing its meaning. You have people that get very, 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 very dogmatic, and that's on everywhere. That's everything. You'll have the people that take it to an extreme that you're just not going to. So like I'll still cook with like Montreal seasoning, in the hamburger meat. There's no sugar or anything like that. You're talking just like garlic, onion, that kind of stuff. And that just, like you said, it keeps it easy for me. It tastes good. And if I'm getting 95%, that's an A, right? Like before, I was I
Right.
was I was maybe 40%, right? I was eating meat, but just with all the other stuff. So I'm happy with 95% personally.
I mean, I'm happy with 85%. You know what I mean? If I'm doing, especially with my living situation, or I can walk downstairs right now, there could be Pringles sitting on the table. I'm okay with 80%. You know what I mean? Like 85%, 90%. I mean,
Mhm.
I think, you're absolutely correct. There's so much of the dogmatic, like, how dare you use black pepper? And it's like, well, I don't care. Like, if there's another thing that I try to instill in people with my content and my outlook is, if we are in fact trying to grow a community and we're trying to help as many people as we can, being those over the top sticklers helps nobody. Like,
Mhm.
that's why I'm always very excited to talk about, like, the proper human diet as a spectrum, because what's going to be the most likely scenario to get us to hit that peak? I talked about something the other week about, to get a movement to really start to catch fire with a majority of a population, you have to kind of hit that 25% threshold. How do we get 25% of just the American population to adopt a better way of eating? How do we do that? It's not by being dicks. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you're not doing it right. You're doing it right. People don't respond well to that.
It's never worked with anybody for anything ever anywhere, right? And yet we keep
No.
doing. And like to your point earlier, people are going to people, right? You're going to have people that this changed my life, and a lot of them they come from a place of love, right? This helped me, and I want to help you, but I'm going to be overbearing about it, right? It's off putting, but yeah, don't be a dick, right? It's kind of simple.
I had to learn that. I had to learn, especially in the early days when I was really starting to see results, and people would come to me, they would text me, friends, family, acquaintances, like, what are you, I've seen you're doing this. What are you doing? Can you help me? Yes. And I would send them Homer's Odyssey written in text form on everything they need to do. And they were like, no,
Yeah,
because
too
it was too
restrictive.
much.
Hmm.
It's too much. They're like, there's no, like, because it wasn't just cut carbs. It was all of, oh, you got to avoid seed oils and da da da, and you got to do this and watch out for the salt you use. And da, da, da. No, you can't.
Hmm.
I've even started to kind of roll back on some of the things, like people will complain about, they'll get into looking at labels, and they will look at like iodized sea salt, for example, and they'll see that iodized sea salt is three ingredients. There's the salt, there's the iodine, and then there's the dextrose that keeps the iodine from evaporating. and they go, there's sugar in my salt, and they sound the alarm. Well, typically you buy salt at the grocery store in like a 21 or 22 ounce container, right? Mm-hmm. There's the same amount of dextrose in that entire container as there is in one egg. And you'll eat 6 eggs in a day, but you're not going to want that dextrose in that container that's going to last you 8 months. That's going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back. And it's $2.
Yep. I mean, you're absolutely right. And that's the way that, I think more and more people are starting to approach it, is just show people the 90%. Here's the big things that really changed and moved the needle the most. And then let them go as far down that rabbit hole as they want. People are going to, deep dive that, to whatever their heart's content is. Because you can go all the way lion, right? That's about as far as you're able to go. Lion, salt, beef, well, ruminant, and water, period, right? That's about as far as you go without starving to death. And then you have the other people. So getting them 90%, you've done them a huge service. Let them figure out where they fall on that spectrum. Because the hardest thing coming up for me is, coming Thanksgiving. We're going to go to my girlfriend's grandmother's, and we always do this, and we always go there, and they always have homemade tamales, right? I plan on having a couple tamales because I don't want her mad at me, right? But if I can be, 90, 95% until then, because to your stream earlier, talking about, having a goal and being able to reward yourself and not hate yourself for it, is huge, to where it's like, yeah, I'll never have this ever again in the rest of my life. Yeah, that's not likely.
It's not realistic. And it sets you up for disappointment and failure, because then if you say to yourself, I'm never having this again, if you then slip up and have it again, then you've failed. And I know that there's going to be people, there's always people out there who are like, well, you shouldn't have it. Well, of course you probably shouldn't have it, but
food's a weird
thing. This is the
thing.
really real world.
Yeah. Food's a weird kind of, addiction in something, because there's not the people out there that they go to a family, meal and they all get around and shoot heroin, right? That's not the way that works. You're not
Only
going somewhere to be, you're not going somewhere to be faced with a lot of those demons that people feel. A little bit closer would be like alcohol. People, they'll go places and those drinking and stuff. But it's like every time you go somewhere for food, it's there. Food, it has to be a part of it. You have to do it to live. So it's a weird, trying to let yourself do just enough to where you can, sustainably stay healthy, but not so much that you, fall off the wagon, get drugged by the wagon, and backed over by the wagon.
Yeah. There was something that I was going to touch on, but now I forgot.
Well,
Yeah.
No, well, if you think of it. But yeah, no, I mean, I guess that'll be a good place to kind of end it on now, because, we're a little bit longer than I told you to expect, so sorry about that, but the conversation
No
was good.
worries.
For where you are now, for the people that, they want to make a change, they know they need to make a change, they're in a situation to where I was when, I got the blood work back. What's going to get them 90%? What do they need to work on first? Those small steps that are going to carry the majority of the load for them, that they can do sustainably and simply, and then go from there.
I think some true self-reflection. What are some absolute must-haves in your life that you need to have, right? So as a big guy, I need my bacon. I need, I like beef and steak and eggs. Just so happens those things are part of the package, right? So that worked. That was a big deal for me. That worked for me. I was able to really run with that ball. Now, for some people, there's a lot of people out there who are meat averse, and there's all kinds of people out there, but really kind of looking at how can you simplify your day? How can you simplify what you're eating? How do you simplify it? Just starting to get yourself, so the thing that I was thinking about was the idea that there was a point in my life where I was probably eating 1,000 carbohydrates a day. I have no idea what the calorie count was, but if you can get yourself from wherever you are down, just set a goal of sub 100 grams of carbohydrates. Start with 100 and then work your way down to 50. and then maybe work your way down to 20. And then we're talking total carbs, not net carbs, because you can probably have 500 total carbs in a day and be at 100 net carbs. So you focus on total carbs, single ingredient, whole foods. What's going to really work for you? And for someone like me, if you are a food addicted person like me, don't go into this trying to like count calories or limit yourself in any kind of way, because again, you're going to want to relearn your satiety. You're going to relearn what hunger truly feels like. You want to relearn what it feels like to not be so full you feel like you're going to just explode. You want to get to the point where you're just like, okay, I'm good. Let's go do something else now. Because that's such a foreign feeling. But just simplify it. Get yourself down to 100 carbs a day. Doesn't have to be huge. I mean, are you okay with burger patties? Are you okay with scrambled eggs, fried eggs, some bacon? What are you okay with? Are you okay with pork chops? Are you okay with chicken thighs, chicken breast, chicken legs, whatever you want? Some veggies, just broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. Just try to make it simple, easy, and just don't overthink it. And I don't know if that's helpful, but that's kind of where I'm at now.
Nope, I think that's perfect. That's where the majority of people are going to find healing, right? It's not with the dogma, it's not with, the crazy, it's with the easy, sustainable, something that they can plug in their life without completely uprooting it. I think that's perfect. More people, they just need to hear that, right? If more people heard that, to say, try it, right? What do you have to lose? You're already, wherever you are, you're already miserable. Give it a shot. Give it 90 days, see how you feel afterwards, and then pivot. If it didn't work for you, now you can always go back to eating the Fruit Loops and the Pop Tarts, right? It's not going anywhere. So absolutely well said. But on that note, I really appreciate you coming on. I really appreciate everybody that participated and shared what they're doing. You're all awesome. If you haven't yet, go over to KetoSimple. Give Dustin a follow. He's doing awesome stuff. He's helping a lot of people. And yeah, until next time, we'll check in later.